And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
All right, good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern Time, and I want to say Happy New Year to everyone, especially to our friends and listeners that have been with us from the onset of New York's Finest Retirement Unfiltered podcast, transitioning to the Finest Unfiltered platform where we have an array of shows. And thank you to one especially for this year where we've shown the most growth, excuse me, especially as a family, as a team with the Finest Unfiltered, especially we're getting close to a year's time of the executive perspective with Rob and Ron. Thank you to them for such an awesome job. What a hell of a show. And of course, Tom Joyce and Pete Fuselli, thank you for putting us on a nationwide platform with a who's who character cast of guests from different law enforcement agencies throughout the entire country. And of course, Sal Greco, his show has grown substantially also, and we want to thank everyone on this platform, and Jack also, who does the producing for Sal's show. We appreciate it. So 2026, here we are. It's January 2nd. Again, Happy New Year to everyone. And so before we get into today's topic, I just want to briefly speak on the speech, the inauguration of Zohran Mamdani. So the first thing I want to say to this is my message to the cops out there, especially the leadership, right? We talk about the job. Who's the job? The leadership. So my message is this. During the Eric Adams administration, which was only a day ago, we forgot that we're supposed to be apolitical. And we defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. And we take an oath, if you remember that oath. And your oath is to the Constitution. You do not take an oath to the mayor of New York City. So it doesn't matter if it's former Mayor Bill de Blasio. It doesn't matter if it's now former Mayor Eric Adams or your current Mayor Zohran Mamdani. We need to go back to being apolitical. You swore an oath to the Constitution, not to the mayor. So while the mayor has put out some rhetoric about the police department and about other hardworking agencies out there, the bottom line is this. You took an oath to the Constitution. So when you're out there with your boots on every day working hard, remember that. So before we get into the topic, what are your thoughts on the inauguration, if any, Marlon? And good morning. Happy New Year, brother.
Yeah, good morning, brother. Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year, chat. Who we got in there so far? I see Lily. Good morning, Joe Roscoe. I see Mike Freed on there. Who we got here? QC Beast. See Annette 8303. I think that's a new viewer. But YouTube still hasn't fixed this naming scheme, which makes it very difficult from afar to read your names, guys. So apologies if I'm missing anybody. But anyway, Happy New Year. If you guys did anything special for New Year's Eve, post it in the chat. Yeah, my New Year's Eve was pretty quiet. So me and Eric were talking like when you reach a certain age, it's like it's just another day, right?
I could use Jessica Tish for bedtime stories on New Year's. That's about it.
Yeah, but I didn't fully hear Zohan's speech, but I did hear the part about him saying we will replace fragility with. He says we will replace the fragility of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. And I gotta say, I think it's crazy for him to say that, but also, I put out a tweet saying that good luck to him on that, because rugged individualism is part of the soul of America. When this country was created, we have, people sailed halfway around the world to come to essentially what was outposts in the middle of nowhere for this country. And you look through the decades that followed, where people went westward, and again they went to outposts in the middle of nowhere and started towns and spread civilization, right? So rugged individualism is part of the American spirit. Okay, that rebelliousness. That there's a certain rebelliousness about it that is ingrained in America. Okay, so good luck trying to take away that. And believe me, I also said, globalists have been trying to do that for well over 100 years now. That's why they keep trying to change the face of America with mass immigration, by the way, because they want people. And we'll get to that later on, because there's a recruit in the academy who's kind of like went over the deep end, as John posted a tweet about it. But they've been trying to change the face of America with mass immigration and the immigration of people who don't necessarily understand the Constitution and that rugged individualism of America. But they've failed so far, and I think he's going to fail too. So good luck with that. And like Eric said, if you take that oath, you take the oath to the Constitution, okay? And whatever wacky stuff comes down the road here, remember your oath is to the Constitution, not to the mayor. So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I strongly take that position that you defend the Constitution. So with that being said, my brother John, who's not here today, Happy New Year, brother. He's actually traveling back from New York to Florida. He's probably chewing on the steering wheel by now, between this week with conversations about Eric Sanders and now what's going on with the Constitution, the American flag. So John's probably chewing away at the steering wheel. So, yeah, brother, Happy New Year. Be safe on your travels. And with that being said, I do believe this. Listen, I serve my country as an American patriot. I believe if you're a soldier, you're a sailor, you're a veteran, you're an American patriot. And as an American patriot, you have a duty to serve your country fighting enemies, foreign and domestic. But I think no longer can we just refer to our law enforcement as just police. I think they're veterans too. And I'm not saying that because I served in both organizations. If I only served one, I think I would still understand it. But since I have served wearing the uniform for the United States military and also for law enforcement, I do believe that we should refer to our law enforcement as veterans and service members, because their boots are on the ground and they're serving, fighting enemies, foreign and domestic. And when you're a law enforcement officer, you have to put religion aside. So what are we talking about here? We have a recruit in the academy that does not want to salute the American flag. And the question is this about religion? Is this about politics? Now, I believe that there is no room for religion and politics in law enforcement to a degree, right? Everyone has their religious beliefs, and we can make certain accommodations. I do understand that. But it's interesting that there was no room for religion when it came to the vaccine mandate, but we have room for religion when it comes to the American flag. Now, when it comes to the American flag, if you're a law enforcement officer on the streets of New York City, I don't care if you're Muslim. I've stood toe to toe and side by side with Muslims in Iraq that wore the United States Marine Corps uniform, and they translated for us, and they were American citizens, and they did a hell of a job. I don't care if you're Jewish. I don't care what religion you are. If you're Catholic, if you're a law enforcement officer, you defend the Constitution. Saluting the American flag means that you uphold the Constitution and you respect it, and you're going to serve and protect. It does not mean, and it should not correlate religion. And when we talk about, in God we trust, that's anyone's God, right? Because we protect anyone who's under God. So the American flag is not opposites with the Constitution. It coexists, and I believe it's in tandem. So we have to put aside politics and religion. You should salute the American flag when you're an American patriot, a law enforcement officer. And unfortunately, in some ways, how could we not? Let me just say this. I have to kind of defend this recruit in a way and say, well, if we have former chiefs of the NYPD getting on their knees during BLM riots, they've towed down and went down to their knees, then who's to say that someone can't salute the flag? That's the problem. They have created the pathway where this has now become a conversation that maybe it's okay. Now, I don't agree with it, but unfortunately, weak, coward, old, pale, and male, stale, white chiefs of the NYPD stood on their knees during BLM riots. Now, how could you ever salute the American flag on your knees? So with that, you kind of have to defend this recruit. What are your thoughts, Marlon?
Yeah. So let me post it to the on screen so you guys could see it. So what we're talking about, we'll get into it early. We'll get to Kaz, but what we're talking about right now is that word that there's a recruit in the academy right now who's put in an RA, a religious accommodation, so that he can basically avoid saluting the flag. Okay, and he's stating that basically it's against his religion to saluting the American flag, and so that's what we're talking about. And it's kind of crazy because we've had Muslim cops on the job for how long now? For decades now. Okay, so why is this happening now is the question. And I'd say it's because this recruit, whoever he is, he like Eric said, he's seen the examples set forth right now. He's seen the time period that we're in, where first of all, we have like no standards, right? And second of all, you see all the things that have happened before, like the kneeling for BLM, the DEI, the non-DEI nonsense. Then you have like on the other scale with the vax mandate, where due process and the Constitution are basically ignored. So I think in a way this recruit might think we have like an anything goes culture now, where it's okay to basically like you don't need to salute the flag anymore. What's next? We don't need to. The Constitution is a suggestion. So that's I think that's where we're at. And this is like Eric says, it doesn't matter who you are. Okay, it doesn't matter who you are. Okay, when you join this job, when you become a law enforcement officer, you take an oath to the Constitution and to this country. And if you don't understand those very principles, what are you doing? How effective of a law enforcement officer are you going to be? And why do you even want to be a law enforcement officer? Are you doing this for just, for a salary, just for a job? And if that's the case, go, there's millions of thousands of other jobs that you can do right now. Okay. Why this? So I'm interested to see the department's response. I personally think their response should be maybe send him to psych services or start working on the paperwork to get this guy out of there. But considering the atmosphere that we're in and what we've seen over the last couple of years, I'm not exactly sure they're going to deny him, which is pretty sad in itself.
Well, unlike you, Marlon, where you were terminated without cause and without reason and did not get an exit interview, I think this cop should have an exit interview immediately. Here you go. Why do you not want to be an NYPD police officer? What? Well, you don't want to salute the flag because the American flag is the umbrella for the laws that you execute, the laws that you protect. Now, and I think this is interesting, right? Because I believe that sometimes I think there's confusion, right? As a law enforcement officer, you're supposed to defend the Constitution, which means that you protect civil liberties. Now, I'm a firm believer that civil liberties and safety should not be opposites. Those should coexist also. Civil liberties and safety. So that means you defend the Constitution, you protect the Constitution, and you also stop people from committing crime by enforcing the law and protecting people's civil liberties. You have to balance those. But not saluting the flag because of your religion, I question that. Again, I'm not a religious person. I don't understand how your religion would keep you from saluting the flag when you are still wearing that uniform. Because if it goes against your religion, so think about this, Marlon, because this is the part that's triggering in my head. If it goes against your religion to salute the American flag, why wouldn't it go against your religious beliefs to wear that uniform? Because that uniform and the American flag represent one another. In my opinion, every law enforcement uniform, every uniform should not just have the patch but you should also have an American flag. In most uniforms in the military, somewhere on the uniform, there's an American flag. And there should be an American flag on a law enforcement uniform throughout this entire country. I don't care if you're in bumfuck Pennsylvania or if you're in the South Bronx in New York City. You should have your patch, but you should also have an American flag, right? We have the New York City patch, which has it has the flag for New York City, but you should also have the American flag. So what are your thoughts on that? And I know we're spending some time on this, but I think this is a deeper conversation, because the fact that we've gotten to this point that we've allowed this mishmash in the vaccine mandate, where some people accommodate, some people don't. We have gotten to this point now. And I believe that's the platform. This vaccine mandate is the platform for things like this, that we can make referrals and we can make metrics and measures and standards and comparisons. So what do you think about that? I believe, in my opinion, how could it violate or be in opposition to religion but not wear the uniform? How is that not in opposition to religion?
Well, I think the mandate was the start of I've said many times, the mandate was part of a larger push, and that larger push was to change the identity of this country. It's to basically change it's basically to get us to a point where the Constitution would be irrelevant, if not outright changed through voting and through the representatives in Congress. The people, the globalists, which are it may seem like an ambiguous term, but globalist means largely the oligarchs and the billionaire class of vampire capitalists who don't care about countries. They care about their money. They have no loyalties to country, because they have multiple homes. They have homes in Europe, homes in America, homes in the Caribbean, homes in South America. So if New York goes to hell, that's all right, because they'll be on a jet tomorrow to their home in South Florida. So when I personally refer to billionaire to the globalists, I'm referring to that class of people, and that class of people also encompasses politicians, and the politicians, there are many of them. You know who they are. They're the same people who show very few loyalty to actual America and what being an American means. Okay. And they're the people who constantly sell out your vote in Congress, who tell you they're going to vote one way and then get into government, and then they vote things that they vote in things that are antithetical to the American spirit. But I think, and there's plenty of evidence that what they were trying to do during COVID was to change the face of America. Think of it. They wanted a papers, please society where you have to show your vax card to enter a grocery, to enter a movie theater, to enter a restaurant. Okay. They wanted to start to normalize that culture where you're going to have to show your ID essentially at any random moment. And that is not how America is. Okay. That's not how America is. So once we head down that road of the mandate and all that stuff, naturally we would have gotten to a whole different country by now. A country where you have to get the vax, you have to get updates to the vax. Okay. Even if you want to travel, you need to get updates to the vax, and you need to show your ID all the time. So I think that they want to change the face of America, and that agenda failed, but they're still trying it in different ways. And one of those ways is the mass immigration. And I think again, the things that Mamdani are going to try to do are going to be another version of that. It's going to be a lot harder though, because they're facing a lot of pushback from us, as they did during COVID. And even if people in New York City go along with it, there's a lot of people in America who saw what happened during that time, and they're not going to go along with it. They're not going to be okay with it. There's going to be enough public outreach that it's going to be a problem. But I just think that the mandate and the whole situation was to essentially change the face of America and get rid of the individual spirit of Americans. You know, it's not a coincidence, by the way, that they keep trying to push things in Europe that have already happened in Europe in America. Like the MTA just changed the subway gates, right? The gates they put in are the same thing they have in Europe, right? The fact that they're getting rid of streets in America to push for more bike lanes is because they see it in Europe. They want to turn the American spirit into what's happening in Europe, but they don't realize that, it's a different culture, So
Well, here we are, 2026. Again, this is why I love the chat. Our friends and listeners that are here, that stay with us on the lives, I appreciate it, because your engagement really helps and it moves the platform. And you're a big part of the platform. That's what's unique about the podcast, the platform, and the shows that we have, is that we want the audience, our friends, listeners, and even our trolls to be a big part of the conversation, because healthy debate or being in agreement is what conversation is about. Opinions, expertise. And with that being said, that's why I want to thank Im Franco. When I mentioned before about coward white chiefs being on their knees,
yeah,
Im Franco says Madry too, and you're absolutely right. Madry also. So again, we look at the leadership of the job, when rhetorically speaking or figuratively speaking, they're still on their knees, and some literally were on their knees. And so we've gotten to this point now where the rubber hits the road, where a recruit does not think it's necessary, based on religious accommodations, to salute the flag. There's no place to cross-reference your religion to the American flag when you are a law enforcement officer in this country. Again, I believe that American flag, if you don't want to salute the American flag, I'll say it again, I don't understand how you could actually wear the uniform, because that uniform to me might as well be a complete American flag. It just happens to be blue. Some places it's green. You work in the desert, it could be tan or brown. It doesn't matter what color it is. The reality is underneath before I even say that, underneath every uniform, again, I would say, should have an American patch somewhere, and underneath it should say somewhere on your uniform, American with pride or something like that. That's because you are protecting the streets of America. I don't care if you're in New York or some small town in Texas that doesn't have a street light. You're in America, and you represent an American, and you should be saluting that flag, and you should be putting your religion aside for that. But yet, this is actually a topic of conversation, and this is going to be something where people are on eggshells. But yet, when it came to the vaccine mandate, John had to make the decision of his religion and leave the department, and he clearly had a great opportunity to climb the ladder. And Marlon, forget about that. Marlon was wrongfully terminated. He didn't even get an exit interview. Anyway, speaking of people on the job that left the job and came back, let's talk about Kaz Daughtry. So about 2 years ago, John and I did a podcast. I think Sal was on it too. I got to look back. I'm pretty sure Sal did it with us also. Sal, if you're on, brother, if you're up this morning, if you can remind me, I'm pretty sure it was the three of us. I got to look back, talking about Kaz Daughtry. And the question was he actually promoted to a civilian, or was he still a uniform member holding a civilian title? And I believe, I have to look back, I'm pretty sure I said that most likely he's a uniform member holding a civilian title, which is why he's still running around doing police work and still carrying a gun and acting like a cop. Not a good cop, but acting like a cop. So I think we were right all along. So the question is this, right? Was Kaz Daughtry a uniform member the entire time and we're just shuffling around titles? Or was he promoted and somehow demoted back to detective to allow him to retire from the NYPD? So it doesn't make sense. Think about this. How could someone hold a civilian title as deputy mayor of public safety? Yes, first, when he was promoted by Rocket Fuel, it was deputy commissioner. Then it was assistant commissioner, still under the umbrella of the NYPD. But once he was so-called promoted or transitioned or hired, I guess you could say hired, because it's a new job and he's an appointee as a deputy mayor of public safety, sort of like we're talking about the pensions again. No longer are you under the umbrella of the NYPD, or are you under a uniformed New York City Police Pension Fund, which is its own fund. You would now be working for the state under NYCERS. So Kaz Daughtry, appointed to deputy mayor of public safety, is not even under the umbrella of NYPD. So you have to ask yourself, was he a uniformed member the entire time? Did they give him and shuffle around all these civilian titles to protect him from CCRB, unlike how they didn't protect me from an overzealous CCRB? Now, I asked Lou Turco back then, Lou Turco, Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to the LBA. Is there anything that could be done? Any safeguards from this overzealous civilian complaint review board? Oh, nothing could be done. Absolutely nothing. But apparently it could be, because Kaz Daughtry was either promoted by rocket fuel and somehow promoted to an outside agency. I don't know how it is. Could you imagine one day, you know what? Marlon is a detective. Let's make Marlon the deputy mayor of safety. Tomorrow, let's make him let's make him a firefighter. The next day we'll make him a sanitation commissioner, and then we're going to put him back to detective. It doesn't make sense. You're not even in that uniform pension anymore. So in my opinion, I believe that he was a detective the entire time. He was given these titles as safeguards to protect him from CCRB, to protect him because he already pled guilty to misleading statements or lying, one of those. So either way, his credibility was shot. And he was still paying into the pension fund, still getting overtime, because the only way to become the only way that you really could get demoted in the uniformed pension fund is if you're still under the umbrella of the NYPD. If you're a deputy inspector, you can get knocked down to captain, right? Captain's a civil service exam. If you're a deputy commissioner, you could go back to your rank. But as deputy mayor of public safety, Marlon, what do you think? I think this is just a complete shuffle. And to me, again, this goes back to a tiered system. This is not good for general population, but good for some.
Yeah. Well, I think that culture of anything goes at the top is we just talked about that recruit. See, when you have an anything goes culture at the top, it eventually trickles down to recruit. There's no standards for anything. It's just a matter of you finding, you being connected to the right people, or you finding that one loophole, or you twisting prior rules to get what you want. So why not? If you're a recruit in the academy who don't want to salute the flag, why not? We have that culture at the top. That culture eventually trickles down to the bottom, and like we talked about in the last segment, you saw it with that recruit, right? So what's happening with Kaz is it's that culture. I don't think has benefited him as well. I just don't think it's benefited his career, because now he's in that awkward position of really not reaching 20 years, as we pointed out before. But what do you do with him? What do you do with him? And like Eric says, there are many things that the job could have done for you, apparently, because it certainly twisted the rules to get Kaz to where he is now. And by the way, they twisted the rules for other people as well, and I'll show you. But if you're now joining us and you're a little bit confused as to what's going on, let's give you some of the backstory. Okay, so our esteemed deputy mayor of public safety, he's now his boss is no longer there, as we have a new mayor, right? And he has been booted back down to lowly detective in the NYPD, and he's being transferred to the 105 squad, as you can see on the bottom here. I assume in order to run out his time so that he can have a 20-year retirement. But as we've spoken about on the prior show, he really would have, I think, a little over 2 years to do, technically speaking, based off the time he spent as the assistant commissioner, and the time he spent at least as assistant commissioner and deputy mayor of public safety. He would have to do his time, which means he would have to do over two years and change in the squad in order to retire at 20 years. We'll see if that actually happens, but as we've said before, we're going to be watching all of this, and you can bet we're going to do follow-up on it. And the pension section, you can expect my FOIL requests, and you can expect plenty of it, because you open Pandora's box, and now we're going to open it all the way and see all the shenanigans that's been going on with the pension section and with the twisting of the rules in order to get to where we are now. But again, there's many things they could have done for Eric. You know, one of those things is made him a director of internal affairs, and that's something I'll talk about on the next go around.
Well, here we are again, right? It's your Friday roundtable. Here we are, first roundtable of the new year, talking about things that people don't want to talk about, but they talk about behind closed doors. I mean, there's been a lot of semantics, whether this is legit or it's not. I'm sorry, if it doesn't look right, is it right? This doesn't look right to me. This doesn't look right. Kaz Daughtry has been given a welcome mat to New York City. He's been literally and figuratively given the keys to the city. He's been given every layer of protection possible that anyone in general population would never see and even fathom. So the point to this is, in my opinion, again, I said this last go around, but I'll say it again. I believe he was Detective Kaz Daughtry the entire time, and they shuffled around these titles and gave him these titles as layers of protection. And also, it was also the lifeline for Eric Adams. Kaz Daughtry was pretty much the liaison for Eric Adams, funneling information and also authority from the mayor's office to the NYPD. So now the question is, Kaz Daughtry, back to detective. What happens from here? Now, I've been getting calls constantly, and some friends who were near and dear from the NYPD. And some of them say, oh, Kaz is screwed now. Now he's a detective. I said, are you serious? Do you really think they're going to do anything to him? Do you think they're going to mistreat him, or actually, he's got to get an ID card. They're going to make him run around all day. I said, are you serious? Look at the optics. Do you really think that they're going to do that? No. Kaz Daughtry is going to have the same level of authority that he had before. He's just going to be a detective in name only now. But the question is this: why the lack of transparency? 2 years ago, and we know NYPD, the entire NYPD, the upper echelon. How do we know that? Because we speak to everyone. We also have nearly 80,000 subscribers, and a majority of that falls under the NYPD. They can't say that they subscribe to the Finest Unfiltered. They can't say they might fall under investigation, but they do. And they know that 2 years ago, we raised the question, myself, John, and Sal, the entire network here, but I think it was me, John, and Sal that did the show. Gotta look back. And we said, is he a civilian? Is he uniform? What is the case here? Why not be transparent with it? And here we are 2 years later. Why the lack of transparency? Tell us, how does this work? Jessica Tisch, please. You're the police commissioner of the NYPD. Tell us, how does someone become a detective first grade, become a deputy commissioner, assistant commissioner, eventually work in the deputy mayor's office, and hold the title of deputy mayor of public safety, be shielded from civilian complaint review board, and then go back, get overtime the entire time? How does this work? Because I was never informed. I would have loved to know this. Marlon, maybe you would have loved to know this. Maybe there's something we could apply for. Is this on the post, right? In the NYPD, for any outside law enforcement agencies, or if you're a police enthusiast, they have something called post in the NYPD, and they show all the jobs that are available. So where is it on post that you could apply, become a commissioner, become deputy mayor of public safety, and then go back to the NYPD? I'm curious. Why the lack of transparency? Why not just tell us, how does this work? Tell everyone how Kaz Daughtry was promoted by Rocket Fuel, was pretty much a quasi-commissioner, and then went back to the NYPD as a first-grade detective to retire. Could someone please tell us what's going on here?
Yeah, you know what, Eric? I think you should have asked to be a director of internal affairs. Yeah, Then you could have been have the payroll title of Director of Internal Affairs, but you could have had a public title of assistant deputy mayor of public safety.
Oh yeah, we got to break this down. This one is interesting.
Yeah,
Tell them all.
We're talking about Luis Molinda. If you guys are wondering, another guy with just like Kaz and his made up titles. He's another one that had a made up title, who, a made up public facing title, but also a made up payroll title. That title of Director of Internal Affairs is a made up payroll title that's been used a couple times already. Namely, it's been used for Eugene White, who became the Executive Director of Public Information. And it was used for Joe Resnick when he aged out and they made him Deputy Commissioner of Internal Affairs as opposed to Chief of Internal Affairs. So they could have made Eric a Director of Internal Affairs, and then he could have had the public facing title of of whatever he wanted, apparently, right? But again, it's rules for thee, and the rules don't apply if you fit a certain tier. And by the way, Kaz's situation, it's not just Kaz, because what was revealed on here is we have another guy who was part of that class of the rules don't apply to me, and that guy is the Sergeant Singer you're seeing at the top, who's now being assigned to the Bronx court. And the sergeant here was, he's had many high profile roles since the Adams administration got into power. Okay. And you can see he kind of left the job with nearly 14 and a half years. So technically speaking, this guy has a couple years that he needs to get on the books before he can retire. We'll see if he also gets the rules waived for him in this instance. So, and he gets to walk out the door when we're not paying attention. But again, we're going to be looking at all of this. So just to go back to Kaz now, what I'm wondering is Kaz actually going to be at the 105? Okay. Is he ever going to show up at the 105 squad? And is he ever going to get assigned a case to him? Because you're in the squad now. So naturally, being in the squad, you're going to get cases. You're going to be catching cases, right? Isn't that how it works? But I don't think, well, I think they want us to look away and, again, not pay attention to this so that he can quietly walk out the door in a couple months. So.
Yeah, if anyone actually thinks that Kaz Daughtry is going to walk into the 105 and have some sergeant hand him paperwork and say, hey, next case you're up, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. And I've gotten numerous phone calls. Oh, that's it. He's done. They're going to rip him a new one. No, they're not. No, they're not. There's backdoor deals done where Eric Adams, I'm sure, I would assume Eric Adams is telling people, that's my boy. Take care of him. They're shaking hands. If anyone thinks that Kaz Daughtry is going to have to wait online in one police plaza to get his ID card and get his shield, you're out of your mind. You think that he's going to do some refresher training at the police academy and then go to the 105 squad and say, hey, you're on the Bram or you're in the squad? You're out of your mind. That is not happening. I don't even know if he's going to report in. I don't even know if he's going to actually show up, if he's ever going to see the inside of the 105. Where does Kaz Daughtry live that they assigned him to the 105? Do you know? Where does he live?
I think he lives around by Oyster Bay. The town was explained a while ago because he had some kerfuffle with the local PD. Apparently he was like speeding to work and, he like drove on the side of a road or something and was pulled over. There was some issue involved in it, but I think it was mentioned in there. He lives.
I was trying to figure out why they picked the 105. So I figured either he lives in Long Island or there's some connections at the 105 with Eric Adams. Or they just said, whoever, pick any precinct, doesn't matter. He's never going to go there anyway. I'm sure. You think, I don't know who the sergeants of the 105 right now. So whoever the sergeants of 105, you know damn well right now, There is no way if Kaz Daughtry walked in and threw his legs on the table and went to sleep, and you think, Marlon, you think the sergeant's going to walk up to him, push his legs on the ground and go, hey, buddy, you're up? We got a missing? Yeah, right. You are out of your mind. If you think that's what's happening, you have no idea how politics works. This was already worked out. If you think that Jessica Tisch and all these people are blindsided also, that they had no idea, that Jellyfish Chief of Department, Mike LaPetri, has no idea, you're out of your mind. Everyone knew. And that's, again, why I always say that every chief on this job at the NYPD is complicit, because they all are privy to information. They know exactly what's going on, and no one says a word. So there's been conversation, oh, does Mike LaPetri deserve it? Listen, Mike LaPetri knows law enforcement. That is his wheelhouse. He's very good at it. He's very knowledgeable. Did he deserve it more than Fat Triple Neck? Sure as hell. Did he deserve it more than Jeffrey Madry? Yeah. But there could be two truths at the same time. While he does deserve it based on that, he's a jellyfish because he never spoke up about all the stuff that was going on with Jeffrey Madry, what was going on with John Shell, his unprofessionalism on social media, Kaz Daughtry getting promoted by rocket fuel, running around embarrassing the police department. This jellyfish, chief of department, Mike LaPetri, never said a word. So two truths could be seen at the same time. So with that being said, no way Kaz Daughtry is not going to the 105 and doing squad work. I mean, listen, I know Mike Smith, my brother Mike Smith, shout out to you, who's enjoying retirement right now. He's in the chat. Mike, if you could answer up, if you think that Kaz Daughtry is doing work at the 105, like some sergeant, whoever's the whip in the 105 precinct squad, anybody wants to know a whip who's ever in charge of the squad, is actually going to tell Kaz Daughtry, hey, Kaz, 2 days ago, we had to kiss your ass, and God forbid we didn't salute you. You'll find yourself, swimming 2 boroughs away to get to work. They're not going to say anything. They didn't say anything with the vaccine mandate. They didn't say anything when John had to leave. They didn't say anything when Marlon was wrongfully terminated, kicked out his ass. They didn't say anything when Sal was wrongfully terminated. They didn't say anything when Eric Din was talking about it overzealous civilian complaint review board. You think they're saying something now? No, they're not saying a word.
Yeah. And so that we're also clear on this, Sergeant Suazo is another one, okay? All right, another one who's had unusual promotions, and again, she's short, she's short of actually, yeah, she should be 1 year, at least 1 year short of her retirement. We'll see if again they try to do some shady stuff with her, but yeah, the job was silent when all of this was happening, and you have to wonder. Well, you have to wonder why the unions have all been silent on it, But I think we all know the answer, especially when it comes to DEA and their support of Eric Adams, But I think all these promotions, these unusual promotions, and this bending the rules is unusual, and it's unfair because, these things used to be unusual occurrences, and again, there's only 3 people who've had the title of Director of Internal Affairs in the last 20 years, almost 20 years, and that was Joe Resnick, Eugene White, and Luis Molina. Okay, and prior to 2023, it was only one guy, and that was Joe Resnick, and that was done to keep him on, even as he aged out. And yet after, in that same time period, it happened twice. Okay, once for Eugene, and then the other time for Molina. So these things used to be reserved for very unusual circumstances, and yet we've seen it constantly under the Eric Adams administration, them bending the rules to get what they want, and all these chiefs were silent. And even now, I doubt Chell is going to talk about this. Certainly not under his his main handle. He's probably going to use Salvatore Gricci or one of the other bogus names he created to talk about it. But yeah, nobody wants to talk about it, and nobody wants to talk about how problematic this is, because here's something that we never talked about: the fact that, like, Zohan now is in charge. And, even though he showed signs that he wants to, bring back order because he's gotten rid of the post for deputy mayor of public safety. And now the first deputy commissioner, who another conversation, because that guy is he's tied to some really leftist stuff. But he is now basically he's now overseeing the police department. Okay, so there's no longer a deputy mayor of public safety. So Mamdani is showing signs that he wants to get rid of all these unusual titles and made up positions. But the precedent has already been started for him to basically promote anyone he wants in the police department to any position in government that he can think of. And nobody at the unions ever thought maybe it's not a good idea that we're starting this terrible precedent. Maybe this could come back and bite us in the ass. None of the chiefs said it. Not the captain's endowment didn't say anything about it, even though, again, now the precedent has been set to basically undermine the traditional promotional system.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I think that what we see throughout the history of the NYPD since I've been on the job, and John and you, Marlon, since we started the job, nepotism and cronyism has been at the core of the NYPD, a major, major problem. But it's getting worse because the nepotism that we see is more and more tied to City Hall. And with the Eric Adams administration, we've seen that the nepotism and cronyism is so tied to the City Hall that the allegiance to this administration has been the hierarchy when it comes to the Constitution. That's why I said, remember to the cops that you took an oath to the Constitution, not to the mayor. The mayor is supposed to serve the public. You're not serving a monarchy. And unfortunately, what we see right now, I don't think there's going to be anything different with Zohran Mamdani when it comes to nepotism and cronyism. We have not cut out the root of the problem, and that root of the problem is that three-tiered system in the NYPD that I often talk about. And when I talk about tiers, I'm not talking about your pension. I'm talking about the tiers of the division of classes of cops and leadership in the NYPD. The leadership, the upper echelon, the chiefs, they are that tier one. Where rules do not apply to them. Tier two, those that are connected by nepotism and cronyism, where rules don't apply to them either, because they either have access, they have done favors, or they have the right connections. And everyone else is the people that are running around terrified that, God forbid, they're 5 minutes late to work because they're part of tier three. Think about that. You got a cop right now who's driving to work and terrified that they're 5 minutes late, and they're driving around, they're crazy. And then we have a former chief that thinks that one police plaza is his harem, and then he can do whatever he wants with it. We have a former chief who's so unprofessional on social media, and he's still unprofessional. And I mean, it's like Jekyll and Hyde. Sometimes if he hasn't made it to Joyce's Tavern, he wants to have professional conversations, completely masked from who he really is. But after Joyce's Tavern, he's a totally different person. So, I mean, clearly nepotism and cronyism is at the core of the problems with this administration, and especially within the NYPD. So again, remember, you serve the Constitution. You defend the Constitution. You don't defend the mayor. It's not your job to defend the mayor. Your job is to defend the public. This is out of control what they're doing with these promotions, with shuffling around titles, just, using it any way they want for their friends and for their cronies. I mean, does anyone think that Kaz Daughtry, let's be honest, that Kaz Daughtry had the tools, the characteristics, the traits, the skills, the capabilities to be promoted by Rocket Fuel, to be in the position that he was in? What skills did he have that was so out of the ordinary that it was necessary for him to get promoted by Rocket Fuel? Now, I'm not saying it's not impossible. Could there be someone in the lower ranks that has some skill that's so imperative that we need? Yes, but I don't see that in Kaz Daughtry. Does anyone else? I don't see that in Kaz Daughtry. We've given him the illusion that he has those skills and traits, but clearly this just doesn't look right if anyone thinks this is okay, oh, this is how it's done. No, this is not okay. It's not okay that someone is promoted to deputy commissioner, assistant commissioner, and then promoted to an outside agency appointee. When you're a deputy mayor of public safety, to me, an appointed position that is completely unnecessary. He was pretty much a YouTube creator, is now going back to the NYPD to get a pension. So we're now utilizing the NYPD has become this bank. Don't worry, we can send you to the fire department. We can send you anywhere. Oh, when it's time to get you paid, we'll just send you back to the NYPD. Don't worry, we'll just get the money for the pension. And if you're out there thinking, my pension is impenetrable, right? Nothing can happen to my pension. It can never be penetrated. You're wrong. These pensions are not guaranteed. They're not forever. And if we don't be the squeaky wheel that gets the oil, those pensions might not be there forever. And that's scary. I want to protect my pension. You should want to protect yours too. And if you think this is okay and you keep your mouth shut, if you're active in a police department, we don't expect you. But if you're in retirement, you got to speak up on this because they are draining the pension system, which ultimately could be draining us.
Yeah, that's another problematic issue that why they should have all addressed this, and nobody seemed to care. But I see a comment in the chat from BSK824 who says, so are you people saying I would never have done what Kaz did? I'm gonna assume that I didn't see the full conversation, so I'm gonna assume that BSK is saying that if given the opportunity, if any one of us would have taken it, okay? And I'm gonna say this, right? If I were given that opportunity and I take it with the understanding that I'm never going to finish my 20 years. I'm potentially never going to finish my 20 years, okay? So I know that my retirement is it, because coming back would be illegal, and it may not hit me in the face now, but 5 years down the road, if the God forbid the pension system has any sort of pressure on it, people are going to start looking back at all the fraud and wasting and the malfeasance, and this might come back to hit me in the face if I go along with it. Okay, so if I take that position, I'm taking it with the understanding that, hey, this is 17 years. That's it for my uniform period. That's I'm gonna be I'm on the road to becoming a politician. Okay, or maybe I may try to eventually take some leadership role in another department, and this is a resume builder. But my career in the NYPD is over. Okay, and if I'm in his position now, first of all, on that road going up the chains, I have the understanding that you the way I treat people up is the same is what's going to happen when I'm down. Okay, so if I decide at the end of Adam's term that I want to go, I still want to stay on this job, I'm staying on the job with the understanding that I'm just a regular cop again. If I got to go to the squad, okay, that's fine. That's fine. But I'm going to be a regular cop again. So therefore, when I'm in those positions like Deputy Mayor of Public Safety, I'm going to treat people well, treat people with respect, because I want that same respect to come back to me when I'm back in uniform again. But initially, like I said, when I'm taking that job, I'm taking it with the understanding that my career in uniform is over. Not that I'm going to take this and we're going to find some creative way to end my 20-year career in uniform while I'm serving as a civilian, effectively as a politician.
Spot on. That was beautifully said, brother, because I was thinking the same thing. Do I fault him for taking an amenity that was afforded to him? No. Would I tell anybody, wow, if you had the opportunity to get promoted by rocket fuel and have an amazing pension and you get all these titles and you get protection from CCRB, would I tell them no? You're damn right. I would not tell them no. I asked the LBA, is there anything that can be done to shield me from this overzealous civilian complaint review board? Because the chiefs, they're all smiling at my face, giving me awards. I was getting awards for the same stuff that I was getting substantiated civilian complaints. I was getting awards. Great job. Chiefs are telling me right to my face to face, oh, you're doing a great job. We appreciate it. You know, it's tough with CCRB. So CCRB is attacking me. You're giving me awards, and you're not shielding me. You could have given me the opportunity. You could have promoted me to deputy commissioner. Would I have taken it? Damn well I would have taken it. I'm not faulting him for taking it. What I am faulting in him is his response. And that's what Marlon just alluded to. His response. Because if you're promoted by Rocket Fuel, you have to maintain your humility, especially when you never were in a position of leadership. You were never a public speaker. You were never at the table, at the head of the table. You have to come through with humility. And then also be transparent. Say, hey, I was promoted. I'm holding a civilian title. I'm still a uniform member. I'm holding 2 hats. This is what I'm doing. And right now, I'm new to this position, but I'm here to help. And I have these people to guide me along the way. Humility goes a long way. It goes a long way. Just think about sports, right? Right now, everyone's watching football. If you watch 2 teams, who do people root for? You root for the underdog. You root for who's humble. And the same thing goes for Kaz Daughtry. Now, where I do have the problem, though, and this is not Kaz Daughtry's fault necessarily, is that it's not a level playing field. And what we're saying is, since Kaz Daughtry had this opportunity, why didn't Eric Dim get this opportunity? Why did Marlon Bethel? Why did John McCarry, Sal Greco, Rob Lukash, Ron Layson, and the 35,000, well, there's not 35,000 now, but the thousands of other cops that have walked their boots on the street and have retired, and the cops that are there right now, how come there is not a step process to do the same thing as Kaz Daughtry? That's what we're saying here. It's not a level playing field. And Kaz Daughtry, his response was a failed response. It should have been met with humility. He should have taken classes on public speaking. Show that you care. He should have, maybe during that time, maybe said, hey, listen, since I've been promoted by Rocket Fuel, I'm willing to take a civil service exam, even though it's not going to be graded, just to show you that I care and I've actually delved to learn administrative policy. Something like that. Show, but then also be transparent, explain to the public, are you holding 2 hats? Instead of just barking orders and being disrespectful to people, and now you burn that bridge. But, fortunately for him, he has a lot of protection, so it doesn't matter, because even though he burned bridges, he's going to have a boat and he's going to have a lifeline.
Yeah. I also think he squandered it, because you get elevated like that so quickly. You should have been the voice of the blue shirt peasants, when you were up there, and you should have gone around. His job, I always say, his job should have been to be like the cheerleader and to go around and fix things in the department, not to be making stupid videos or all the driving Adams to the club, in a Craylo unmarked vehicle. His role should have been to go to every precinct and fix all the complaints that we have about, about working in a precinct or being a cop on the ground level. That's what his job should have been. And had he had done that, he would have been loved by everyone. Okay. And had he done that, I think there would be less questions asked, even though I think a lot of us would have turned the other way to them skirting the rules, because we'd have said, you know what, it's a little bit unfair, but this guy earned it, just like when they made that bogus title for Joe Resnick, they made it because, they thought that, Joe Resnick had deserved it, and the job is stronger to have him on past his uniform retirement date than it is to have him leave the job. Okay. So again, I think he squandered an opportunity to make real changes in the department or to improve the day-to-day quality of job life for cops. But I saw a comment in here from Bisky. I think we have a representative of the Waterbout squad in here today, and I think that's whoever this person is. I'm just going to say that what you're saying now with that statement is basically it's okay to break the laws now because it happened in the past, and we've said it before that if rules were being skirted in the past, it's not okay.
So I don't know what happened. You got muted. You there?
Yeah, I'm here. If that was
I don't know
weird.
what happened. You got muted. Somehow it took you off the screen.
Yeah. Yeah, I was saying that it's not okay just because it happened in the past, and we weren't there to criticize it in the past. We're here now. But your Bisky also said that Kaz beat the game as a young black male. And I'm gonna say, did he really beat the game? Think of it for a second. Kaz had the opportunity. First of all, in for a couple of years, Kaz was doing Madry's job as chief of department. Okay, he was essentially chief of department because Madry was studying for the test, and it was Kaz that's the one that was going over the radio. Okay, so he was effectively doing Madry's job, right? Kaz has a lot of institutional knowledge that Madry passed along to him, and he had exposure to a lot of what goes on behind the scenes at 1PP and the job. If you have that knowledge, right, and you didn't take the test and decide to go up the chains, then you're stupid, okay? Because at that point, you're effectively no longer a cop or a detective. You're not doing this. Your role isn't the same as me in Intel or you in the precinct. It's not. Okay. He's a quasi supervisor at that part, a quasi commander. So take the test and become it officially. And using the institutional knowledge that you already have, you could have been one of the greatest commanders in history because you had such a leap ahead of the guys before you, but you didn't. Okay. Because maybe that was too hard. I mean, think of it. He had all the free time in the world. Okay. He could have been studying for the sergeant's test on job time in Madry's office. Okay. And all the free time that you guys on patrol don't have, yet you guys are passing those tests and going up the ranks. And he didn't. And yet he still wanted the same privileges and the same stature without having to take those tests. So I asked the question, did he really beat the game? Because look at his situation now. Now he's short of 20 years. He's assigned to the squad, yet we know he's not going to have to go in the squad, because if you had to go in the squad, I'm sure not only is he unprepared to do investigations, but he's angered a lot of people at the top or in his roles at the top. And now he has to face the peasants again on the street. Okay, so he's in a like a complicated situation that he created for himself when he basically had a golden road paved for him to officially become a commander and become good at it.
You know, Marlon, it's brilliant what you said, because I did some research, and when I was in college, I took a seminar. It had nothing to do with college, but when I was studying, I took a seminar once about job interviews. And do you know what the most important thing that was the determination of in a job interview? I was shocked by it. Likability. Likability was the number one thing that could differentiate someone from being hired in comparison to someone else, despite capabilities. Capabilities, obviously, they're important. Capabilities are skills that you might have, but likability was number one. And so what does that mean? And that goes for Kaz Daughtry, right? So your likability is very important. That's why you have to maintain humility. I think back in my own career, and it's not the same, but just an idea of why it's important to maintain humility, likability, because you don't want to burn bridges. And even though I know Kaz Daughtry is never going to step foot into the 105, and he's never going to do police work, he has to live with himself in 30 years from now and say, wow, I mistreated and disrespected a lot of people. I stepped on a lot of people because I was promoted by rocket fuel, and I was afforded an opportunity that most people will never get. And rather taking that in and being grateful for it, his response was to be a tyrant and to be disrespectful and to mistreat people, in my opinion. Now, with that being said, when I went to the basic module officer course to make sergeant. We were in this course. So for NYPD, you know what that is. But anyone from an outside agency, just a police enthusiast, you sit in a classroom for a month and pretty much you listen to seminars and waste your time. No leadership training at all, which has been my argument. Should be leadership training. But halfway through, due to budget cuts, we were told that back then it was Deputy Commissioner Wexler, if you remember him. So he came and told us, due to budget cuts, we can't promote you. So halfway through, they said you will continue. We continued. We finished the course, but we were not promoted. We had to go back to our precincts. And I swear to God, there were some cops crying because they already gave the fuck yous. They already burnt bridges. And now you had to go back to your precinct. So I went back. And I had a great relationship because I was always respectful. I actually had fun. I mean, I got abused. It was hilarious. I went back to the 120 precinct. I was supposed to be a sergeant, and they gave me a name tape. It said almost sergeant. I had corporal chevrons glued to my locker. And back then, Sergeant Miller, who's retired, Mike Miller, how you doing, brother? He said, "You got the desk, brother." And he gave me his shield, and I went on the desk, and I had the name tape, said almost sergeant, and everybody was laughing. We had a good time. But if you burn bridges and you're not humble, people are going to be happy, and they're going to be, look, see, that guy deserved it. They're going to look at you and say, oh, karma got you. And someone here said, well, they just don't have no conscience. Yeah, I mean, clearly, I don't know if Kaz has a conscience or not, but clearly, to me, that means there's a lot of insecurity going on there. And here's a person that was like, whoa, it's my time now, right? I got rocket fuel to the top, and I'm going to tell people what to do. I mean, if that's what makes you feel good about bossing other people around, what happened in your life? Were you abused, right? Because most people that abuse, they become the abuser. So what happened to you in life? That's how you treat people. And, I still to this day, Marlon, I call everybody sir. I used to call my cops sir. People that work, hey, can you help me, sir? You mind? I call everyone sir. Old people, young people. When I go to the grocery store and the cashier is 16 years old, packing my bags, I say, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Here's a 16-year-old kid, because I believe in respect. Why couldn't Kaz Daughtry do the same? And you have to ask, what's inside you, how you feel about that towards people? That says a lot about your own character and how you feel. To me, the way you treat other people, I believe, is how you see yourself. And if you respect yourself and you feel confident in yourself, well, you don't have to mistreat other people and you don't have to boss them around because you're confident in who you are.
Yeah. I think ego is one of the biggest problems on this job. For some reason, I say it all the time that it's a downfall of a lot of commanders. I think it's the ego, and I certainly think now I got a pushback from Chief Faison because he didn't like the comments that I said on the last show. Okay, so he sent me a message. He's no issues with the message. Everyone has a right to push back. Okay, but he just said that he thought I was being unfair with the comments, and I told him, listen, I told him I gave him reasons why I wasn't unfair. I'm not going to share it all here but he sent me another message, which I didn't get back to him yet, but I'm going to do it here. That the problem is ego. Okay. A lot of these commanders, they let their ego run ahead of better judgment, and I think it eventually it has bitten a lot of them in the ass and ruined a lot of careers, and I think we could chalk this one up to it as well, because I think and look at Marjorie too. But see, I think the problem is that a lot of guys you get in these positions and they're no longer humble and they think they become arrogant, right? And if you dare tell them that, hey, listen, this ain't right, or if you tell them slow down, they look at you like how dare you, Quick story for you. When I was in All Out, I was assigned to the 6-7. This was just before I got my shield, right? So I went to the 6-7, and I was a little annoyed about it because they froze my track for 3 months, right? And I thought it wasn't fair. But I said, you know what? Okay, fine. I'm gonna make sure y'all learn a lesson from that. I'm gonna run around out there and make calls left and right and rake up a lot of overtime. So when I get back to Intel, you're gonna be writing 49s to explain my overtime, right? So I knew I was gonna be active there, right? So I get there and the sergeant who's assigned to all out is a former 7-7 guy, right? He just made boss and he was making waves in the 6-7. A lot of the cops didn't like him, right? And he was a little arrogant too, you know. Like I remember being in the car with him, and I was, what? Okay, here's this. One day, he says we're in a van, right? We just picked up the guys from Post, and we brought them back to the precinct. And he says, "Take me to Canarsie." I go, I'm thinking to myself, Canarsie, why are we going all the way there for? Okay, so we go to Canarsie. Well, first we stopped at a bus station and we picked up a chick in a bus, and he's sitting in the backseat with. They weren't doing anything but talking. But I remember I'm in the van and I'm like cursing to myself. I'm like, what the hell? What the hell is this guy doing? You know. So we dropped her off in Canarsie, and then he walks her into the house. I remember being in the van and I'm like, I was pissed, bro. I was pissed. I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing? I'm right about to get my shield, and I don't know what the hell he's doing. So he finally comes back down, gets in the car, and we go back to the precinct. And I'm telling him, I'm like, bro, you got to slow down here. You're on probation. Okay. You're on probation. Okay. You're already making waves, and the people and a lot of the cops have a problem with you, and you're getting out of line here. And he was like, no. And he was explaining himself. And you know, when you're a cop, okay, you have to, there's a certain point, especially at that phase of my career where I was still relatively young. I'm like, you know what? I said my piece with this guy. We parked the van. We went inside. I signed out for the evening, right? A couple days later, all out was over, and I get back to Intel. 2 months later, I find out he got arrested because he drove drunk on his way home on the southern state, and he managed to hit a guy who walked into the street. Some guy who had an accident, and I guess he was trying to wave down traffic or whatever. But he hit the guy, and then he continued driving home, and he left a bumper for his car, and he killed the guy on a southern state. The bumper was left in the road, and I think he had to do time. I haven't checked up on what happened to him since, but I think he had to do time. But he was fired from the job, and he lost his. That was it for him. But again, it's the problem is a lot of these guys they get in that position and they no longer think clearly. Now, I'm not saying that Faison was to that point, but when I hear him talking to Corey on Corey's interview, I hear him say things like about the detectives who've been there for years before him, and suddenly he wants to make waves and completely change the system and change it to his to his liking. I think it's that hubris that these guys get in there, and it ends up biting them in the ass. Okay, you have to slow down sometimes. Okay, and you have to, you got to respect people, and you got to slow down. Okay, because a lot of times that's going to come back and just it's not good long term, and it's gonna smack you in the ass, in the face. So, short story there.
That was the short to the long version. No, listen. You know what? I'm glad you brought up that story, right? Because I'm a firm believer. Listen, you should have integrity, do the right thing. But if you're going to do something that doesn't look right, don't put someone else in that position either. If you want to do something and you're going to do something that's going to potentially get you in a bad spot, do your thing. But don't put someone else in a bad spot, because that's putting you in a bad spot. It reminds me of what you just said. Fox said, great story. It reminds me, if you remember, just to show you how someone else could put someone in a very precarious position. In the 9th precinct, if you remember, there was a cop that went to an apartment, and he said that him and a girl will listen to Bon Jovi together. I think it was living on a prayer, and she made an allegation that he raped her. And this rookie cop was sitting in the car waiting for him. And that rookie cop was ultimately terminated. And that the cop was on trial. I believe the cop actually beat the case. I don't remember. Either way, you put someone else in that precarious position. I mean, and that's why you really have to have a real set of balls on this job. From day one you get on the job to the time you retire, you have to have a set of balls. Right? There's certain things when you're a rookie, you keep your mouth shut, and there's a line, right? There's certain things where you keep your mouth shut, like, all right, I'm new. But there's certain things that, you know what, even if you knew, when it crosses the line of moral principle and it puts you in a position where you can get arrested or get terminated, I don't give a shit if it's day one or it's your 20th year. You got to speak up. If someone's putting you in a position where you can get terminated or go to jail, you better reach down and find your balls. Your balls can't be in your mouth at that point. You better find your balls and you better speak up and say, whoa, I'm not on board for this. Rob Marine says you talk about the 9th precinct with the woman who had tons of guys, DNA from multiple guys in her sheet. I don't know if that was the case. I know there was a cop that supposedly went into an apartment. There were some reason it became like the big topic of this case is they were listening to Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer. I don't know if that's the one. Either way, if you're going in an apartment and messing around with a woman on duty, on duty, whether it's consensual or not, I don't really care. That's your life. But you're putting someone else in a bad position. So if you're that someone else, you have to speak up. If it's something that's going to get you terminated or go to jail. Now, there's certain things, if you're a rookie, that you keep your mouth shut. If the guy's telling you can't touch the radio, can't do this, can't do that, all right, you play the game. But to put you in a position where you could be terminated or fired, or in a position like Marlon, where you know damn well this is not good, you better have some balls and speak up. Like, this is not happening again. We're not doing this. I'm not saying you got to report the person, but you let them know we're not doing this.
Yeah. So to be clear, guys, I'm not saying Chief Faison is like that. Okay, I respect the chief, and again, I said before that he deserved to be there because he's a pilot and he's passionate about it, and he's showed you that he has the knowledge to be there. I just brought up that story because I'm trying to equate the having an overblown ego and how it's bad for you. Okay, and sometimes you got to stay humble. Okay, even though you now got that supervisor shield, you got to stay humble. Okay, but yeah, I'm gonna say that you have to speak up. You have to speak up because when people put you in certain positions that could negatively when shit rolls downhill, they're not going to say, oh, well, I mean, you're not going to be able to say, oh, listen, he's my sergeant, what could I have done, what could I have said, that's not going to work. You have to speak up, and if you're the supervisor doing that stuff, you have to listen. You have to get back to earth, okay? Because again, that stuff, you keep doing that, you might have gotten away with it yesterday and today, but tomorrow that stuff is gonna smack you in the face, and you may end up in jail, or you're gonna be pushed out the job, or or you're gonna create such a poor quality of life condition at your unit that that low morale is going to it's going to affect performance, and it's going to affect guys just being motivated to do anything. So that's the reason why I brought up that example. Okay, so no disrespect to Chief Faison. So
yeah, that's a good point. By the way, I was impressed by his record also. I'm going to admit, I thought that Faison was a DEI hire. I didn't know him just based on just my own observations. I thought he was a DEI hire. And the question has been posed to me, what is DEI? So DEI to me is any workforce, any organization that hires someone just to create diversity. And I had a great conversation with Joel. Joel and I had a great conversation. We talked about the differences of DEI and things like that. And then we're talking about if two people have the same qualifications and capabilities to do a job, but one person is the minority, gets the job because they're minority, To me, that's not DEI. That's affirmative action. So I believe that affirmative action in DEI is something completely different. But in Faison's case, turns out he has an impressive resume. I don't know his career itself, policing, but as far as for aviation, he has an impressive resume. Do I believe you have to have that resume for aviation? Not necessarily, but I believe he actually has a resume that is probably has far more qualifications that are necessary, and it was pretty impressive. So with that being said, I'm glad that you told that story, and I think that story is so true, Marlon. How someone else could be put you in a bad spot. That's even in a movie, right? Anyone ever seen Brooklyn's Finest? I mean, the movie kind of sucked, but I think we all watch it anyway because it still has to do with the NYPD. But in that movie, if anyone saw it, Richard Gere plays that old crusty cop. He's supposed to retire, I think, the next day or something like that. His whole life's destroyed. He can't find. He's got no love. His life is dedicated to a prostitute. He just doesn't want to be there. Just miserable. But he goes outside of his command to take care of some errands. And the rookie cop that's in the car sees a domestic, gets out to undress it. And when Richard Gere comes out of wherever he's running the errands, he's, we can't be doing this. We're out of command. But the point is, he put that rookie cop in that spot, right? That was a movie. But in real life, if you're going to do dirt, do it on your own time. Don't put someone else in a bad spot. And even necessarily, you might not be doing dirt, but we always say sometimes the appearance of impropriety is just as bad as committing the act. So when you're on a job, you got to protect the patch. But unfortunately, it really doesn't matter, right? Because you have to ask yourself, what tier am I in? If you're in tier 3, you have to follow the rules. If you're in general population, unfortunately, if you're in tier 1, tier 2, you look at the discipline matrix, you go to the column where it says mitigating factors. Look at those mitigating factors. Those are your potential penalties. Oh, wow. General population, if you lie, you can get terminated during an investigation. But if you're in tier 1 or tier 2, you only lose 1 day. So it must be pretty good at the top. If you're tier 3 general population, sorry, it sucks.
Yeah, it's true. I think hubris is going to be the story of this administration when the history books are written. And just to go back to Kaz's situation, I think we named the people involved in it. There's Kaz, there's Molina, there's Singer, Suzo, all these people. I think they kind of thought that that Eric Adams was going to win a second term. That's the only way I could really think they thought that none of this stuff would catch up to them. That Eric Adams would win a second term, and there wouldn't be a public outcry against all these corruption scandals and all the shenanigans that went on, and that this is gonna be fine. This is all gonna work out in the end. And you're seeing here where that same hubris is now. It's like they're all in this position where we're watching them. Okay, so the hubris is not good. And when the books are written, you're gonna. It's already, a lot of people already think this is the worst administration in the history, right? But I think when the books are fully written on all the stuff that happened here, it's going to be clearly visible. And I think one of the reasons why Chell keeps going back at you guys on Twitter, and he's always launching attacks against John, Eric, and Sal. For some reason, he doesn't, me.
He likes you.
I guess so. Maybe it's Brooklyn North.
Maybe you were driving around. Were you dropping Shell off at locate? Nah.
Nah, that was a different detective. But I think the reason why he does that is because it haunts him. And he thinks about it all the time. And you can't rewrite history. It is what it is at this point. But that's his way of when he's making those comments to you, he's really talking to himself in the mirror. Okay, but that doesn't work for the ego. So he has to get on Twitter and do it to you guys.
Oh yeah, that was. Yeah, I find it comical. I think he embarrasses himself, but I actually rather enjoy it.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. But guys, it's an hour and a half, and if you're just joining us, we're talking right now. We're talking about Kaz's situation and the fact that he's no longer the deputy mayor of public safety. He's back to first grade detective Kaz Daughtry of the NYPD, and he's been assigned to the 105 squad. So if you're now joining us and you haven't done it already, just do us a favor and smash that like button and share us out, because we do have to battle the algorithm of our YouTube overlords there. So if you can, just do both of those for us right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 2026, we're coming in roaring. Listen, like I said, the content never stops. I don't think it's going to be any different in this administration here. So we got to keep rocking. We got to keep rocking. And I want to thank this audience. I thank our friends, thank our listeners. There's no doubt about it that our growth is because we're doing this together. We're building this community here. And with this administration, it's, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. I mean, clearly on Zohran Mamdani's inauguration speech, he already made it known where he stands within the police department. And he said he had apologized before, but to me, I think clearly that apologize was a mask for his mayoral candidacy. There's no doubt about it. And clearly he made his point during his speech that he thinks the NYPD does not deserve to be the hierarchy and it should not be the hierarchy of security and public safety for New York City. That's scary at this point. I mean, it was so political. I mean, think about it. Bernie Sanders, who is a lifelong New Yorker, but he's a politician in Vermont. And he opens up for Zohran Mamdani. He's not even a politician in New York. So just to show you how political this administration is going to be, that's why I want to remind the cops that keep in mind, you took an oath to the Constitution. You did not take an oath to Zohran Mamdani, the mayor. So if he starts to distort the police department, you have to remember you took an oath for public safety. And this is really important. With that being said, my curse is acting up. Marlon, do you think you could get to the coffee and donuts here?
Yeah. So let's see what we got here. Interesting.
I don't know what's going on with my mouse. Acting crazy.
Yeah, for some reason I'm not seeing it on here. I have to rewind the chat. But
they gotta pay again.
I did see one here from Patrick Donahue at the beginning. So thanks again, Pat. We appreciate it. Pat Donahue is one of the great friends of the show, and viewer from pretty much from the get-go. So we appreciate him, and we appreciate all of you guys too joining us on your the second day of 2026. And I think 2026 is going to be an even wilder year. So okay, there, I found it. So we have $4.99 from Patrick Donahue, who says donation to help Kaz buy some shirts and dress shirts at Caraco's or Stu, the suit guy.
Yo, Pat Donahue, thank you for the coffee and donuts, brother. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, he may need to get himself some good shoes too, because I'm not sure those shoes are gonna work in the squad.
Is he gonna have a detective first grade embroidery? Kaz Daughtry, first grade detective on the back. It's gonna be something big.
Well, yeah. I mean, you guys are gonna have to tell him that he's gonna have to wear a tie here. Okay. All right, those polo shirts aren't gonna cut it. At least not until it gets really hot.
But Marlon, speaking of, before we get the next coffee and donuts, what happens now to the CCRBs that were filed against Kaz Daughtry while he's been a uniformed personnel this entire time holding a title? Or was he a civilian that went back? Which one is it? I'd like to know. CCRB should be asked these questions.
That's a good question. That's a very good question.
What happens?
Now that Zohan is in charge, I wonder if there's going to be any pressure to actually because we've had a lot of examples of CCRBs that rightfully should have been they shouldn't have been squashed. We've seen it from Caban, and you've seen him squash a couple of them for his cronies. So I wonder if under the Zohan administration, there's going to be a push to, you know, actually to expand the CCRB as has been discussed before, or to actually take a look at the stuff that's been tabled by the PD, you know. But I think the statute that the time frame has passed, so I don't think anything is gonna happen to Kaz in terms of those CCRBs. You know?
Unless, which is what they did to me. This is the caveat that CCRB uses. It does not actually have to be a crime that was in the DA's office. If CCRB determines, based on their opinion, if it is an act which could be proven to be a crime in the courts, they could extend the statute of limitations. That's what they did to me. And so what CCRB does, say for instance, you have a use of force case. So any active cop right now, you should understand, is very important. You actually have to read the statute of limitations to understand CCRB. Retired guys, I'm sure you understand this. Any police enthusiasts. So if there's a complaint filed, let's say use of force case, and this is what's interesting about it. So let's say they say, Eric Dim, we're making an allegation against you that you used unnecessary force and you deployed too many strikes in a struggle with an armed perpetrator. And throughout the 18 months, the statute of limitations is exceeded. But CCRB determines, you know what? That act was not unnecessary. We deem it as an attempted assault. Now they can extend those statute of limitations and they can take you to an administrative trial. But here's the caveat to understand. Now CCRB can no longer take the administrative trial and file for that lesser threshold, which is unnecessary force. Because unnecessary force, the statute of limitations ran out. CCRB has to charge you with assault in a civil hearing, the administrative trial, if that makes any sense. Even though you're not being charged with a crime, CCRB will charge you with that crime as the civilian complaint. So the only good thing about that is it's easier for the cop to beat that case because they're now charged you with a crime. So they have to prove with the preponderance of evidence that you actually committed an attempted assault.
Interesting. Yeah. If that's the case, then the CRT guys are facing a lot of a lot of pending, certainly litigation, but a lot of pending complaints and cases. So I kind of, if that's the case, then a lot of these guys may be in trouble,
Well, that's my concern for them, which why I gave them fair warning, because if you have a civilian complaint and if John Shell was able to make it go away, that CCRB, and that's why I said with Zohran Mamdani, once he gets elected, that CCRB can be regurgitated and reborn and now say, you know what? You struck the perpetrator. It was unnecessary strikes. That statute of limitation ran out, but we're going to charge you with attempted assault. And now you're in administrative trial for attempted assault. And it's only the preponderance of evidence in the administrative trial at the job. It's not beyond reasonable doubt. You're not being charged with a crime. So that measure is not too much. With preponderance of evidence, it just means that we believe it's more likely you did it than you didn't.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to wait to really understand what Zohan's approach to the police department is actually gonna be, because he's already taken a step back on a lot of his proposals. I think because once you get in there and you realistically see what's in front of you, reality smacks you in the face, and I think so I think we're gonna have to wait a while to see how he's really gonna approach the PD. I think it's encouraging, now don't get me wrong, I'm not a Zohan supporter, so don't get that twisted, but I think it's encouraging.
You sure?
that he said he noted that about Eric Adams' corruption, and he rescinded a lot of Eric Adams' late stage executive orders. And we said it before that a lot of those executive orders were to rob the city's coffers on his way out the door, and they needed a second look. You know, so let's see what he does going forward. You know? But we had a couple more super chats. We have
Got some coffee and donuts here. We're going light today on January 2nd.
no, there's a good amount to that. There's a good amount.
Where's hardcore again?
Yeah, no, hardcore is on here too. He says Kaz took over government social media accounts and made them his personal account. He's still operating X accounts as official government account for deputy mayor, which he no longer is. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Get him for impersonating.
Yeah, and technically John Chell's account too is questionable, you know, because he was operating that account while he was still chief of department. So he used his role as chief of department to bolster that to get the subscriber count up on that account, and he's still operating it. So
the problem is, Bon, I don't know if you know this, but he doesn't know that he was the chief of department a couple weeks ago. He forgot that he's been advocating, him and Tariq Shepard, that great cop. I don't know if you saw on a podcast. Those two clowns are now advocating for morale. Morale is bad. All the stuff in the job. They're gonna change it. They're gonna fight for it. 3 weeks ago, you guys were in the NYPD. You were in charge. What happened? Now, and not only that, we got to go back to the videotape. I got to pull up. Remember when John Show, I think it was on Fox or one of those stupid shows, where he said, "Oh yeah, morale's great. It's great in the locker room." Yeah, I'm sure. It must be great at the bar too. You know, I mean, but you forgot you were the chief of the department a couple weeks ago. And now he's gonna fix everything. You know. He can't even lose weight. We expect this guy to fix the department. You can't look in the mirror and realize you got more chins than you need. If you can't stop putting what's in your mouth, I can't trust you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
If you don't care to look good in that uniform, you know, especially since you're the top uniform officer in the job, then how could we trust your judgment? You know.
Honestly, though, you gotta laugh at those two. Every time those two are on a show or some type of podcast, I get a kick out of him when he's on and you know, he raises his head up like, oh my god, look at this guy. I can't wait, John Show. I'm gonna go to. I haven't been back in New York a long time, but when I do, and I'm a man of my word, I'm going to Joyce's Tavern. Not to fight with you, because that's not even worth it. It'd be too easy. But just to laugh at John Show, you know what? I would laugh my ass off. I'd buy him a drink. I mean, probably be his 10th, but I'd buy him one.
Yeah, you know, if they were listening to the podcast, they wouldn't be trying to rewrite history right now, huh? It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Still writing the narrative. They should write a book, How to Control the Narrative.
Yeah. I want you to forget that they were in those leadership roles like 2 weeks ago, and they could have done all the things they're not talking about.
I mean, honestly though, like if you were from another agency or you didn't know them, you'd be like, "Wow, look at these guys! These guys are really fighting for the job." And like, "Hey, when did you retire? 10 years ago? No, 3 weeks ago." Like what?
It's true.
3 weeks ago, you should retire. You gotta be fucking kidding me.
Yeah.
William Nolan, what's up, brother? He says, Eric, you got to record your meeting with Show. Dude, if I go to, I'm telling you right now, if I ever go to Joyce's Tavern and John Show's there, I'm going to be there with a selfie like, yo, here's my brother right here. I'm going to wear a fat suit. I'm going to get a fat suit. Like, yo, what's up, man? We're brothers now.
we should do a live episode there.
Oh, I would love to. I heard their wings are great, though. I've been there. I heard their wings are really good.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, so
I'm like, yo, come on, let's hop along together. I'll hop on the right angle, you hop on the left. Coffee donuts, here we go.
Yep. So we got a $20 from KB in NYC. Yeah, another loyal viewer of the show. KB's always in the chat. And
2026, I think you put.
We thank you.
Well, 2026.
Oh, yeah. I didn't notice that. Yeah.
What
yeah, that's
happened to
cool.
Roundup? When you go to most places now, you have to round up. Everything should be 21.
Well, they're getting rid of the pennies now, so you're gonna have to really.
Yeah, dude, that's scary. That's scary.
Yeah.
If anybody thinks that's not scary, and you're like, oh, it's just a penny. No, look at what's going on here with the system. You're going to be cashless everywhere. It's going to be your finger's going to be how you pay for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they know exactly where you went today. Forget about you're scamming any taxes. To those few places that it's only cash, God bless you. There's not that many that are left.
Yeah. So KB says, "Happy New Year to all, even Juju." Has anybody seen Juju today? I haven't seen Juju in this chat.
Hold on. Let me call John Jay and see if he's teaching.
Well, maybe we can call Kaz and drop. Maybe I'll take a drive of a couple blocks up and drop a missing at the 105 for him. Huh? See if I can give Kaz his first case. Yeah.
You think Kaz ever did a case before?
No, I absolutely not. Absolutely. You think he's ever done a 5 before? But I will say he's probably done more than a couple. He's probably an expert in dropping 49s because I'm sure he's been doing it all for Madry, for a while now.
So. Michael M says, "Yo, what's up, brother?" He says, "Eric, Brothers Pizza cash only." Yeah, Brothers Pizza is good stuff, man. Brothers Pizza. Actually, is that Chief Marino? Yeah, it's Chief Marino, right, Michael M? If it is, how you doing, Chief? Brothers Pizza, if anybody knows it, it's Staten Island. What awesome pizza shop. But if it's two brothers that own it, but there was a time where one of the brothers was on his way home to the South Shore of Staten Island, and he got robbed and I think he got shot too, trying to take his money. So I don't know if you remember that, Mike. Anyway, tales from Staten Island.
Okay, and we have another one from a Hardcore. Thanks again, Hardcore.
Thank you, brother.
Hardcore says, "Are the intel detectives still assigned to babysit his kids?"
What?
That's a good question. Yeah,
oh, that's right.
Yeah. I will say this. I think the fact that Kaz got assigned to the 105 is kind of telling us that there was a lot of friction at the top. Because think of it, right? If Kaz got along with Tish, and by the way, you remember at the hospital for Detective Islam, there was something going on with them where they wanted to snatch a folder out of Tish's hands. So there was some friction between them. But if there wasn't any friction and these people all work together, then would Kaz be assigned to the 105? No, Kaz would be assigned to commissioner's office or chief of department's office. Think of it for a second. Why the 105? And also another thing, their intel has a unit that literally you could turn out of your living room. Literally, you could turn out of your living room. Okay. And what they never, every now and then they go to their office, but their job is to liaison with local PDs and local PDs and law enforcement within the area. So sometimes they may have to go to Massachusetts or Jersey or Philly, and they have guys stationed out in Long Island. So why wasn't Kaz assigned there? Is the job so incompetent that they don't even know these units exist, or is there friction at the top and they kind of, Tish is like, whatever, just do whatever you want with him, okay? Because again, if these people all got along, and if there wasn't infighting, and it showed you just how much of a mess the Adams administration is, then Kaz would have been finishing out his years in the PC's office.
You know what? I think you're spot on because, I was thinking about it. I was thinking, why the 105? Is it close to Long Island just to play the game and just pick a command? But I think, you know what? You made a great point. Obviously, there was some friction there. I don't think that they're going to tell them what to do, but you're right. They don't want them close to them either, right? Like, why did they put him in the unit with drones or put it right? Isn't he the drone master? Put him with the drones, or like you said, put him in the commissioner's office or
Taru.
Chief of Department's office. You can hang out with the jellyfish. By the way, Michael M, thank you, brother. He says, Eric, I'm not the chief. I think you both have similar YouTube names, but yeah, Michael M, thank you, brother. Thanks for the input. We really appreciate it. I think Marlon, I think you just figured it out. You're right. Like, I didn't even think about it that way, but clearly Kaz Daughtry should have been assigned to, right? You're the deputy mayor of public safety. You should be going to One Police Plaza. Maybe you could, clean up aisle 9 where Jeffrey Madry left the mess.
Yeah. I mean, think of it. You could have assigned him to the JFK task force, and JFK would have been, you hop on the Nassau Expressway or the Belt, and you drive home. Okay, but they choose the 105.
So is he getting a category car? What do you think? Is he getting a category car?
Well, that's a good question in itself. If they want that smoke now, But I mean, there's gonna be eyes when you assign him to the 105 squad. We're gonna look at him like, is he actually gonna show up? We're gonna ask even deeper questions. So why is it you put him there and not a squirrel? Not put him in one of these secret squirrel units?
Yeah, I mean, they already put unqualified people in the federal task force. That's why. Well, that's why the captain is suing. They could have put Kaz Daughtry. Just would have been one more.
Yeah.
Oh, you got one more unqualified person. Yeah, we'll take it.
It's true.
They already screwed up the federal task force.
Is he so like? Does he lack so much knowledge or have so little investigative skills that he couldn't even do that? That's another question. Yeah. Because if he didn't know anything, you put him in one of these units like the JFK task force, and it's like getting a rookie again, and you're teaching a rookie. Yeah.
You think Kaz was looking at the map? Where's the 105? Where is the 105 precinct?
To me, it's just strange. I just don't understand that at all.
Any more coffee and donuts? That's it. Hardcore, man. He must have hit a hell of a stock tip this month with his variable supplement. Thank you so much, brother. Always reaching to his pocket.
Yeah. No, that's the last one I saw. Yeah. But yeah, guys, we appreciate your super chats, and we appreciate the coffee and donuts. So.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I love the chat. I love the audience. Honestly, that's my favorite part of our network. I love the fact that you guys are involved, and I can't thank you enough, especially for some of our friends here that you're with us most times, and I know you have a lot going on at home yourselves, and take the time to watch this and for us to collaborate together. So we appreciate it. Again, thank you everyone to the Finest Unfiltered family. I see Happy New Year to John, Marlon, Sal, Jack, Rob, Ron, Tom, Pete. Thank you to everyone here. Happy New Year. I really just great people here. Popeye, Stephen S, Hassan, KB. There's everyone here. Thank you. I really appreciate everything. I hope you guys have a blessed New Year. And let's not just have New Year's resolutions. Make some real changes and keep them for life. But make yourself obtainable goals. Excuse me. I think sometimes the reason people have resolutions apart is because they give themselves unrealistic expectations. If your expectation is to lose weight or get in shape, these things come with time. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to have the resiliency and the patience. A lot of getting to your goals takes patience. Even I remember when John and I started this podcast together, we're like, okay, we started putting it on YouTube. It's 2 subscribers, 3 subscribers. Like, oh wow. And you're patient. And look, now we're almost at 80,000 subscribers. The same thing. You want to lose weight, get in shape. It's not going to happen overnight. You got to grind, but it will come to you. It will. Blue Butterfly 715 says, Eric, your energy is so pure. God bless you. Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I really appreciate that. I try to. You have to try to enjoy life and make light of everything and find a way to turn even the bad things in life good. I always said I really, in a weird way, I thank God what happened to me that I had to retire young from the police department, and I was able to be home for Derek, because if I was working the NYPD, I don't know how I would have done it. So yeah, you have to turn everything bad, turn something good. So maybe that's a New Year's resolution for all of us for 2026. And and I always say to people, Don't let someone else get you angry or get you mad. That's you can't control how other people are. Don't let them be a reflection of you. So instead of repelling, getting angry at other people, just laugh and smile it off and say that's a reflection of them, not you.
Yeah, yeah. Especially for those of you who are in my situation, where those city workers, if you're watching this, who are fired for that nonsense, for the mandate, don't let the situation get you down. You gotta keep pressing on. You gotta keep moving forward, because what the city wants you to do, they want you to feel dejected and depressed about it, and they that's why they keep coming to you with these offers that are clearly bogus and are humiliation rituals. Okay, because they want to get in your head and make you feel depressed. Okay, and the worst thing for them that you can do is to be happy and to keep the chains moving. Okay, because they want to see you unhappy, and if you're happy, then you've taken away their power. Okay, so for those of you who are in that situation and you may feel down, you had a bad year, well, it's 2026 now, and you got to keep the chains moving, and you got to find happiness. And for our viewers, it's 2026, and we gotta put the pedal to the gas and keep the pressure on them, and not make them forget what they did to us. And and they owe not just us an apology, but they owe you an apology, because you took that stuff. Okay, so we got to keep the pressure on, and we can't let them forget what happened.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that's a great point, Marlon, because unfortunately, I think the police department, cops in general, just people in general have short-term memories. And it's not that they have short-term memories because they just don't care. It's just life is busy, and we all get bogged down with our own personal responsibilities and just life. And that's why we tend to forget. So we have to constantly put the finger on the pulse, and we'll remind you. We'll remind you of what's going on, because it's not, we talk about our experiences, myself and Marlon and John and Sal, but the reality is it's all of us, right? We just happen to have an opportunity to have a voice here, but it's not just us. I'm not the only one that was targeted by a civilian complaint review board, and we all have our own experiences and all have conflicts. And some of us, our conflicts are not with law enforcement. Maybe you're in a corporate profession. They have a lot of issues, a lot of conflict there, or any type of workforce or organization. There's different conflicts. So for 2026, keep punching up. The good thing about it is, if you had a bad year for 2025, it could only get better, right? And I always say this, honestly, don't be so concerned with money. Money is a tool in life, and it's important.
True.
But money comes and goes. You can make money, you can lose money, but your health is more important. Your family, things that you care about. I think, honestly, for people like John Shell, where they constantly only talk about their pension and they're so focused on how much money they have, I think it's kind of evil. And it's not a good thing. When you only focus on money, it's not a good thing. It says a lot about you, that really there's a lot of missing links in your life of what really you care about. If you're solely focused on money, you're not really enjoying your life, because even if you spend that money, if you're a miserable person, you're not going to enjoy it. So if you're a miserable person, their money is going to be miserable too.
Yeah. Just saw one last comment here from KB. KB said we need a meme of Kaz's chopped cheese truck and drone delivery system in the 105 parking lot. That's pretty funny, KB. You're right.
That is outstanding. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The somebody called the 105 squad CO and tell him to make it happen.
That's what I'm saying. You know what? I'm going to challenge the 105 CO. I'm going to tell you right now, brother. I'm not saying this insult, but you don't have a hair on your ass to order that guy to come in and tell that he's got a case. And if you do, I'll publicly come on here and I'll give you a shout out and say he had the balls to do that. And you know what? We'll make you the number one hero for the finest Unfiltered for 2026. So if you're a sergeant or lieutenant, you're in charge of the 105 squad, I dare you. Let's see if you have hair on your ass to get Kaz Daughtry in there. Like, dude, here you go. You got a missing. And when he looks at that missing and he has no idea what to do, say, buddy, call a drone. I don't care. Figure it out.
He's gonna order the detective next to him to take it. Yeah.
Looking over, he's like, dude, I was just a driver here. Can I drive you somewhere? No.
Yeah.
Hey, you need a ride somewhere?
Yeah. Is the zone headquarters at the 105? Where's the zone commander? He probably needs a driver now. You know.
Where's the drones at? That's at 1PP, right?
Taru.
Taru. Yeah. So, does he get a car now? I want to know. For anyone out there who's an insider, I mean, God forbid you speak to us. You know, don't worry, we'll never give you up. But does Kaz have a take-home car? Like, what kind of amenities does he have now? I'm curious.
He can take the squad CO's car, you know. Hey, listen, squad CO, listen. All right. Yeah.
William Robert Nolan says 105 squad CO is probably afraid of Kaz being assigned to his command with all the attention. Yeah,
that's true. That's a good point. Now he has the scrutiny from 1PP now.
Nolan says 105 squad put in a 57. Put in a 57. Yeah, he's out.
Yeah.
Don't forget about
it. Guess who's going to be at Comstat in 2 weeks? Yeah.
You can't make this up, dude. But all kidding aside, so before we close out of here for today, which is awesome, by the way, thank you so much, January 26, 2026. My opinion, he was a uniform member the entire time. This was just a shuffling of titles, and that's why he carried his gun and ran around like a cop like that. And I think it was meant to give him a layer and a level of protection from CCRB and allow him to continue to make money. I think this whole thing was a facade, and just so he could have this authority. Do you think he was a uniform member the entire time, or do you think he was actually a civilian member? And do you think he was really the deputy mayor of public safety getting a different paycheck? Before we close out, what do you think? I think he was the entire time. I think he was under the NYPD uniformed, and this whole thing was just a big game.
Yeah, I think he was a hatchet man for Eric Adams. And I think you're right that this was just meant to skirt the rules and, you know, and be that hatchet man without being scrutinized by, you know, all the supervisory units and, you know, people at the, you know, at the top who weren't in the inner circle of Eric Adams. And I also think, by the way, I think Louis Molinda was a hatchet man for Banks and Pearson. Okay. And that's why he was given that bogus title and allowed to do what he did. And now they're trying to reward him for doing that. So I think you're right. I think it was meant to certainly skirt his CCRBs.
You know, brother Rob Blue Cash, Happy New Year, brother. Rob Blue Cash, formerly known as Rob No Cash. So if you're in the NYPD right now, get that cash. So Rob Blue Cash, Happy New Year, man. He says that Kaz, he was promoted not to testify against Madry. You know what? That's not a bad point. That's you know, you got to protect daddy, right? So I don't know. But ultimately, I think he was a uniform member the entire time. If I had to put my money on it right now, like if I was a gambling man and we're at the roulette table, I'm like, I'm going for black. This guy was uniform the entire time.
Yeah. And just to close out, Telly, we're not saying that most people, that anybody would decline it, but we're saying that, you know, you'd have to be smart, you know, and think of the consequences, you know, and instead of looking long-term at the situation, these guys assumed that Eric Adams will win again and that this would be fine. And it's because they didn't look long-term that now a lot of them are in this situation where it's like, in order to give them that pension, the pension section and the people at the top will be breaking the law. They will be breaking the law. And like we said, we're watching and we're not going to forget it, because look what they did to us, you know, and look what they're doing to a lot of you, you know. So it's not fair. And if they had thought long term, they would have made wiser decisions that wouldn't have put them in this situation now. Like in the case of Kaz, I said he should have just retired. You know, just so what? You don't have 17 years. Big deal. You're making like close to 300K as deputy mayor public safety, and you have a resume builder. Okay. And again, if you decide you still want to become a cop, then you, while in those positions, you be respectful and you be humble, so that when you get back to being a uniform cop, people still love you. Okay.
No, you're 100% right. I think you're absolutely right. I think Pat Donahue said it earlier. Pat Donahue, if you're still here, brother. Pat Donahue said back in the day, if you had a hook, your job was to represent that hook and not embarrass them. And clearly, Kaz Daughtry had a hook and he embarrassed them all because he was unfit for the job, just unsuitable. And I agree with you. At that point, they created this career path where you could go into politics, and the gateway was open for you. So yeah, you say, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to retire. You're not going to get the variable and all that. But so what? You've gotten 300-something thousand a year. You got a gateway to Fox News. You've been on Fox News and News Nation, all the stuff. Nobody would even know who you were. You're the man behind drones. You had an opportunity to interview for deputy director for the FBI, which I don't even know how you made it that far. But you did. So, yeah, you have to, with all these amenities you get, sometimes you have to forfeit some things too. But these guys are just so greedy. They want it all, you know? And listen, one of my favorite movies, Scarface, right? The world is yours. But when you want it all, right? If anybody remembers in that movie, what did Frank say? Don't be a haza, right? Haza, a pig, right? You want it all. The guys that want it all, they don't last. They don't last. One of the best movies, right? When you were haza, you were pig, right? And you want greed and you want it all. Those guys don't last. And neither did Kaz Daughtry. He didn't last. He went to detective, and then who knows? He's going to fade away and go away, and he's just going to be some comical character we talk about one day. And so is John Shell. These guys think they're big time, and they never thought Eric Adams' administration was going away. And they didn't realize that, you know what? It doesn't last forever. They don't last. So don't be a haza.
Yeah. About what Eric just said. Like, so when I got the interview for Intel, I was recommended to the inspector of the FIO program, and he told me, he gave me a call before the interview, and he was like, "Listen, it's like, you were recommended to me, so you're my guy now, and you better get into that interview and know your shit, and you better impress people, and you're representing me when you get in." And he told us that again when we got into Intel after the interview. And he said, basically, if you embarrass yourself, you're embarrassing me. So you have to set an example. So it's like Eric said, if you got a hook who got you somewhere, and you're supposed to represent it well. You don't go in there and like throw yourself around and walk in there out arrogant and with an overblown ego. And unfortunately, I think a lot of these guys did that. And again, it's you look at the results, and you look at them trying to rewrite history now. So yeah, guys, we thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. They pretty much rewrote history, and with all this musical chairs playing around with titles, and it really does diminish the titles, right? These titles are very important. There's two separate things that are always very important: rank and billet. Rank is your title, right? That's your title. It's just a name that you hold. But what's important is the billet. The billet is what that job holds and the responsibilities that a job is. And when titles are just misused, well, what's the responsibilities and the duties for that job lack significance and importance. And it shows with Kaz Daughtry, right? Because as the deputy mayor of public safety, ultimately, most of his time was spent creating content. So we've completely destroyed rank and billet. So again, here we go. January 2nd, 2026. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it. Thank you for joining the Friday Roundtable. It's a new year. Monday, we'll be back as always. We'll be back. John will be back. Me and Marlon, of course. And Tuesday, you'll have Sal Greco, first of 2026. And then, please, if you haven't checked them out yet, those guys are great. Tom Joyce and Pete Faselli. This show is great. Put us on a nationwide level. They have a who's who cast of characters, guests from the entire country, from all different law enforcement agencies. It's great. So if you don't want to just focus on the NYPD and you like to meet people from all over the country, watch some of these shows. If you want, there's such nice people, you can contact them. And maybe if you're interested in going to another city or another state, you could ask some of these guys about their experiences. And I'm sure these are contacts that can help you. If you're an NYPD cop and you're looking to go to Georgia, we just had a Monty on here from Georgia, former Marine, great guy. You could ask him questions. So use that as a resource. And then Wednesday, of course, we'll be back. And then Wednesday night, your executive perspective, who's been out on vacation, Ron and Rob, I don't know who told you guys could take off. They'll be back. So we'll be back for a full week. Marlon, anything to close us out?
Yeah, I was just going to I'm sorry, I was just looking out for that detective again who saved the toddler's life on the highway. The reason why is because I think since it's 2026, I think we're gonna put the gas on to the pedal. We're gonna put the pedal to the ground and go even harder on all this malfeasance and nonsense at 1PP, and we have to do an equal job of highlighting great work by cops. So I think we need to highlight these great examples of cops doing their job in each episode. But what else was I gonna say? Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there. Yeah. Here's what I was gonna say. The 10-4 Tavern coming up on Tuesday. They're having Mike Recupero. I hope I pronounced that right. He's a retired NYPD lieutenant. He's gonna be on the show. He was in real-time crime. I think he was there in the transition from real-time crime being a smaller unit to being more the large scale unit that it is now on the second floor of 1PP. I think it basically operates on the entire floor of the second floor, and it's massive, and it's like very high tech in there once you go in and see it. But he's gonna be on the show on Tuesday at 7 p.m. on the 10-4 Tavern, and like Eric says, they've had some great guests on there, and those guests have run the gamut of the country, and different law enforcement agencies. And I think some of their stories have been fantastic. Like the last episode in particular, if you watch Narcos, the first one, he was played by one of the actors in Narcos. So you gotta check that out. The entire series of Narcos was pretty fantastic. They first dealt with Pablo Escobar and the Cali cartel, the Rodriguez brothers, and then they went into Mexico, and they went deep into Mexico. And in fact, in one of the last seasons, even El Chapo was on there, but he was like a young El Chapo. So it's a great series, and you guys, especially if you've seen that series, you should go back and watch that episode with 10-4 Tavern. But again, thank you for joining us. We'll be back Monday, and I hope you have a great weekend, and a happy and a healthy New Year.
Yeah, to that point, before we close, I just want to say, I think that the 10-4 Tavern is really underutilized, and people don't realize what a gem it is, because it's a network. That show is not only a show, but it's a network for everyone here, for our friends and listeners, to get in contact with these people who want to be in contact with you. And we really build a community throughout the country. These people have great stories, and I think really that people are underestimating how great that show is. It's really great people on there. And like I said, we give you all the content information for those characters, cast of characters that come on from all different parts of the country. So, don't isolate yourself just to New York. Meet some of these people. Get out. If you're going to move, you're going to retire, and you want to find out about Georgia, contact one of these people. If you're interested in law enforcement agency, contact them. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to say, hey, I saw you with Tom and Pete. They'd be happy to talk to you. So with that being said, find some filtered, everyone. Thank you so much. And let's get to Kaz Daughtry, 105 Squad. Thank you, everyone.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime. But nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?